It is a scene ripped straight from the darkest corners of a political thriller, yet here we are, witnessing it unfold in real time on the world stage. The dramatic implosion of President Donald Trump's inner circle has reached a fever pitch, and at the epicenter is the woman they once championed as an outsider, former Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. In what can only be described as a political, scorched earth farewell, Gabbard has detonated a bombshell that has sent shockwaves from the Pentagon to the Kremlin, leaving Trump utterly exposed and reportedly freaking out behind the closed doors of Mar-a-Lago. This is not just another leak. This is a systematic, declassified destruction of the official narrative. Over the past 48 hours, Gabbard, effectively serving out her final days after being publicly humiliated and pushed out by Trump's incompetent Nepo baby successor, Bill Pult, has unloaded troves of intelligence proving that the United States government, specifically under the deep state apparatus she claims to have fought, lied repeatedly and intentionally about a global network of over 120 taxpayer-funded biolabs across 30 different countries. The documents, now public and verifiable, specifically highlight the more than 40 facilities scattered across Ukraine. These are not merely public health projects, as the Biden administration once frantically claimed. No. The declassified slides, which Gabbard handed over with a fury that only someone who has been betrayed by the system could possess, explicitly state these labs housed dangerous pathogens, including Ebola, anthrax, and plague, all part of gain-of-function research that was actively covered up by politicians and so-called experts like Dr. Fauci. And as the dust settles, a far more sinister network is coming into view, one that ties the hands of Netanyahu's lobby directly to the dirty work of these biological facilities, and implicates a rogue Israeli-linked judge who inexplicably set free a bioterror suspect caught red-handed with HIV and Ebola cultures in the middle of a residential Las Vegas neighborhood. This is the whistleblowing that the empire never wanted you to see. Before we dismantle the terrifying web of Mossad-linked bio-operations and expose the secret role of the occupation forces in shaping Trump's failed foreign policy, I need to ask you to do something crucial. If you believe that the American people deserve the truth, if you are disgusted by the fact that your tax dollars funded biological weapons research in a war zone, while your politicians called you a conspiracy theorist for asking questions, then you need to smash the like button on this video right now. Share this broadcast across every platform you have. Drop a comment, even if it's just a dot, to fight the algorithm that tries to bury independent journalism. And subscribe to this channel to stand with the truth before the establishment finds a way to shut this down. We are the only firewall against this madness. Now, hold on tight, because we are about to walk you through the most devastating intelligence dump since the Pentagon Papers. The sheer scale of this revelation forces us to reframe the entire conflict in Eastern Europe. Gabbard's resignation letter, submitted under the personal pretext of her husband's illness, always felt like a cover for a deeper, more explosive rift. We now know that Trump forced her hand, humiliating her in a leaked phone call where her replacement, a housing official with zero intelligence experience named Bill Pult, told her she was out effective immediately, a move that even Trump's own aides reportedly admitted left the administration in chaos. But in a stroke of ironic genius, Gabbard used her final days of clearance to do what no director of national intelligence has ever dared. She turned the lights on in the dark basement of the global empire. The documents she released through the Office of the Director of National Intelligence admit that evidence regarding these labs was knowingly withheld from the American people, and that powerful people threatened anyone who tried to speak out. Fast forward to today, and we are looking at a map of Ukraine that looks like a spiderweb of high-security biological threats. The Kharkiv Institute of Experimental and Clinical Veterinary Medicine, a facility with historical ties to Soviet-era biological warfare research, was flagged for biosafety deficiencies and a hidden basement in a virology building. And who has been the silent partner in all of this? The regime in Tel Aviv. Press TV and other independent outlets have long reported that the occupation forces and their Mossad spy network have been embedded in the logistical and security operations of these Ukrainian biolabs. Why? Because the war in Ukraine was never just about NATO expansion for the Western military-industrial complex. It was about securing dangerous biological assets and conducting gain-of-function research on populations with zero accountability, with the occupation forces serving as the enforcers and facilitators. Let's rewind the tape and look at the history here, because the mainstream media wants you to forget the smoking gun. Russia has spent years warning the United Nations about the activities of these biolabs, specifically naming the involvement of foreign intelligence agencies. In August and September of 2025, the Kremlin revived its formal complaints, presenting documentation that not only were these labs testing pharmaceutical drugs on unsuspecting Ukrainian citizens, a fact later confirmed by Cornell University professor Dave Collum in an explosive interview with Tucker Carlson, but that the United States military department was running the show. The occupation forces, acting as the self-appointed sheriff of Washington's foreign policy, were reportedly tasked with the security and logistics of these labs, effectively helping the Biden administration sanitize their operations. Why would the occupation care? Because if you control the research into pathogens like COVID-19, HIV, and Ebola, you control the future of warfare and pandemic response. For years, Russia claimed it had to conduct its military operation to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine. Critics laughed. But the declassified Gabbard documents prove the central intelligence concern, that these labs, sitting in the middle of an active war zone, were ticking time bombs of biological agents. The invasion, whether you agree with it or not, was triggered by this exact fear, a fear that the Americans and the occupation forces were building weaponized pathogens right on Russia's border. And now, Gabbard has confirmed that fear was not a conspiracy theory. It was classified reality.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of long-standing U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people. And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs. Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist. Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Now, ODNI will continue working closely with partners across the U.S. government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain, to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens.
But the web gets infinitely darker when we focus on the Las Vegas connection, a thread that ties this global biolab scandal directly to a Trump-appointed Jewish judge and the release of a man who should be in a maximum security prison. We are talking about the arrest of Israeli citizen Ori Solomon. Early this year, U.S. authorities raided a residential garage in Las Vegas. Inside, They didn't just find guns, they found a fully operational black market biolab stocked with the deadliest pathogens known to man. We are talking about vials of HIV, active tuberculosis cultures, malaria, and, disturbingly, pathogens linked to Ebola. This was not a university research facility, this was a secret lab running alongside Chinese fugitive Jia Beiju, who was already wanted for trafficking fraudulent COVID test kits and receiving over $1.3 million in suspicious payments from Chinese banks. This was a multinational high-stakes biological operation running in the United States on American soil under the watch of the intelligence community. So what happened when the sheriff caught the Israeli citizen red-handed? A federal judge, one appointed by Donald Trump and of Jewish faith, stepped in. In a move that reeks of corruption and foreign interference, this judge dismissed all federal charges against Ori Solomon. All of them. He was not prosecuted for weapons possession. He was not prosecuted for bioterror threats. Instead, the charges were dropped, and Solomon was immediately freed to return to the occupation forces. Ask yourself, if you or I were caught with Ebola in our garage, would we walk free? No. We would be buried under the prison. This is the definition of a dual loyalty crisis. This is Mossad's long arm protecting its assets, facilitated by a judiciary that is clearly compromised by the foreign policy lobbies of the occupation state. Of course, as we dig deeper into the machinations of the Trump administration, we have to look at the man who was supposed to be fighting the deep state, Donald Trump himself. The irony is biting. The irony is, Trump watched his director of national intelligence uncover a global conspiracy involving the Pentagon, the Bidens, the occupation forces, and Mossad. And how did he thank her? He fired her. He replaced a decorated veteran and intelligence officer with a billionaire grandkid named Bill Pult, a man who couldn't even get a security clearance to run the agency he was handed. This is the derailment that Gabbard saw coming. In her explosive testimony and leaks, she has subtly indicated that she realized Trump had no intention of dismantling the war machine. He wanted to posture as an anti-war candidate, but when faced with the reality of stopping the funding for these labs or confronting the occupation lobby about their role in American biological warfare research, he wilted. This is why she had to resign. This is why she had to come forward now. She knows that if she stays silent, the historical record would condemn her as a collaborator in a crime against humanity. However, and this is where we must critique Gabbard herself, we cannot give her a free pass. The journalist in me is screaming at the screen, where is the Epstein file? Gabbard has positioned herself as the truth teller, the one woman brave enough to expose the biolabs. But when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein case, the ultimate honeypot operation that proves how foreign intelligence, including Mossad, blackmails American politicians, Gabbard has been conspicuously, almost suspiciously, silent. We know that Epstein was not just a pedophile. He was an intelligence asset. We know that the occupation forces used his island and his network to compromise Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and a host of others. Yet while Gabbard courageously blew the whistle on gain-of-function research, she has stood by while the Justice Department, led by her own party, signaled there would be no new charges in the Epstein investigation. By not coming forward with what she knows, and she has access to the highest levels of intelligence on who was compromised and how, Gabbard is engaged in a cover-up of her own. She is selectively leaking. She will expose the biolabs in Ukraine because it hurts the political rival she hates, the Biden administration. But she will protect the Epstein client list because it might implicate the power structures she now relies on for her media career. This is the hypocrisy of the Washington whistleblower. So where do we stand as the credits roll on the Gabbard era? We stand in the rubble of American credibility. Because of her, we now officially know that the US government funded 120 biolabs full of deadly diseases and lied about it. We know that the occupation forces are deeply embedded in the security apparatus of these labs. We know that an Israeli bioterror suspect walked free thanks to a Trump-appointed judge. We know the deep state is real. But we also know that the deep state is not some monolithic monster. It is a network of foreign powers, specifically the foreign policy of the occupation that has captured both the Democratic and Republican parties. Tulsi Gabbard tore a small hole in the curtain, but she left the biggest secret of all, the Epstein flight logs and the names of every politician who visited that island, hidden in the vault